Thank you guys for letting us be here. I'm excited to be here with you, Angela. Second to last session, so we're almost there. Marathon, not a sprint. So we're super excited to talk about your experience, Angela. I think we'll kick it off with introductions. So my name is Alex Kozak. I'm the Director of Agency Partnerships at Flowcode. And if you're not familiar, Flowcode has been around for about 4 years, and its mission really is to provide direct-to-consumer connections and bridge the offline and online worlds. So what does that mean? We've all kind of experienced the resurgence of QR over the last couple of years. And so Flowcode's goal is really to provide a more sophisticated, metrics-driven way to connect with consumers and offer information in a way that on the front end is more eye-catching, privacy compliant, branded from a creative perspective, and then on the back end enables all of the analytics that you're used to in the digital space. So everything like first-party data collection, attribution, measurement, all of that thing. So you can think of it as kind of your full funnel conversion layer, specifically across your offline and traditional media channels. So now that everyone has a trained eye, you've probably seen them. You'll start to see flow codes everywhere. I get texts from friends and family all the time, so you guys will start to notice them out in the wild. And Angela would love to hear a little bit about your background and your experience.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today, and Alex for hosting this panel. As I was introduced, I'm Angela Gruszka. I'm SVP of Digital Marketing and E-commerce at AERIN. If you're not familiar with AERIN, AERIN is a luxury lifestyle brand led by AERIN Lauder. Our products span everything from beauty to home decor, lighting, fashion. So we sort of touch every single area of a luxury lifestyle. And what's so unique about the brand is that we're not necessarily selling the product per se, but we're really selling a lifestyle. And AERIN launched this brand about 10 years ago. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. And much of the inspiration came from her time at Estee Lauder, but also from her grandmother, Estee, who had a vast appreciation for beauty and how to create beauty in your home.
Awesome. So you have background and experience in the luxury space. In your past roles and now where you are at AERIN, how have you seen kind of the luxury space evolve, and what kind of trends are you seeing right now?
So I think when it comes to luxury, the consumer is very different, and it takes a bit longer for that consumer to adapt. So the pace of change around us is much quicker, but I think the customer takes a little bit more time to take hold of that change. So when we're thinking about how we're marketing to that luxury consumer, it's not necessarily through all the emerging channels, but it's through traditional channels as well. And so while as everyone's talking about TikTok and all the Snapchat and all these other emerging channels that are out there, our customer is still utilizing methods such as Google search to look for products, or they're still leveraging Meta and Instagram and Facebook, and that's where they're at. So it's very interesting to analyze the luxury customer and stay ahead of the curve in terms of what's new and what's next, but understand that ultimately you're looking to provide value for your customer, and you need to meet the customer where they are. So it's sort of a balance of being present, but then looking ahead at the same time, and continuing to educate and explore new mediums and new technology, but understand that it may take longer for our customer base to take hold of it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think it very much differs than some of the conversations that we've had over the course of, CPGs or travel or financial services. Each consumer is different, and the luxury consumer definitely has a different journey and purchase behaviors and all of that. And so in addition to reaching a different type of consumer, we're also very much at an inflection point in our world. And I know we kind of connected on this briefly a couple days ago, but consumers are weathering a lot of uncertainty, businesses are weathering a lot of uncertainty. So how are you and your team at AERIN kind of focusing on embracing that change and kind of leaning into it?
So it's really interesting. I think that the way that customers shop has changed significantly. So where even in the luxury market, it's less spontaneous purchases, and now the purchase journey has become much more complex, and the consideration cycle is much longer. So we're seeing that, a few years ago when it used to be, 1 to 2 touch points, now it's, 3 to 7 touch points. So obviously that introduces a new level of complexity when we're thinking about how we're going to reach our customer and where we're going to meet them when they have the highest intent to convert. So the media mix and the landscape has become more complex. And so now we've been focusing a lot more on looking at the customer journey, looking at the funnel, trying to understand, at what point is our customer most likely to convert, and what content is right for them at that time. So it's not as easy as it once was. So there's a greater emphasis on cross-channel orchestration, personalization, A/B testing, and I think it's interesting because as we start to think about this level of complexity and the amount of content and creative that's required to really meet that customer where they are at the right time and remain relevant, we start to think about what are the tools that we need to do that. And for AERIN, we're a small to medium-sized business, so we may not have the resources that some of these larger Fortune 500 companies have. So that's where we're starting to lean into things like, generative AI and thinking about how that could potentially help us do our jobs better. So that's something that I've been focusing on a little bit more recently. And I know there's, a lot of different opinions about generative AI and how it could benefit us or not benefit us, and what is the potential use case for it. But I think from our perspective, I think it can provide a lot of value if you understand how to use it. And so for, just to use email as an example, which is, a very important channel for us and very important when it comes to retention. And as I mentioned before, the idea of A/B testing is becoming more and more critical for our business. We've been experimenting with ChatGPT and learning how to train it to get the results that we need. And I know, you oftentimes read that, the results are not accurate or they're not, they're very robotic in nature. But if you actually spend the time to utilize it in a way, like as if it's an extension of your team, you will realize that you can get those results that you need. So training it on your tone of voice. So taking one of your existing pieces of content, pasting it into ChatGPT, and telling it to utilize that tone of voice and everything there on out. And you will start to see that it will produce content that is, better or equal to that of your copy team in-house. And then training it on your audience. So in our case, it's reaching, a highly affluent woman who's between 35 to 55, and asking it to guide you on what information it needs in order to develop content for that specific audience. So it's starting to figure out how we can utilize this tool to provide more value to our organization and our teams.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's always interesting to see. I don't think there's a day on LinkedIn or an article that I don't see about different types of prompts to try or different types of languages to use depending on what output you're looking for. And it's interesting to see that the prompts is inputting the input and the prompts that you use is becoming a skill set in and of itself. And so, we're seeing even skills and job openings kind of reflecting that. So is that something that you guys are looking for on your end?
So it's interesting because my team asks me about it all the time, and I said I'm still trying to figure out like how to train everyone on this. And from my perspective, I think that everybody should be trained on it. But I think we're still learning what we need to do in order to make sure that we can achieve that accuracy and the output that we need. So, I've been spending some time on different tools and learning the different prompts so that I can, guide my team effectively, provide them with the right tools, and so forth. And I do think that it will become a skill set that we will look to hire for in the future. I don't think it's going to necessarily replace individuals, at least in our world per se, maybe in some other industries. But I think in our case, it's going to be a tool to enable us to do our jobs more efficiently and more effectively.
Can you share maybe some examples? I know when we caught up, you had mentioned email or like paid search or anything around your website. We also talked about creative a bit too. Can you share some examples of how you're implementing it into your day-to-day?
Absolutely. So our focus is, like I said before, is very much on that lifestyle and really connecting with customers and establishing that, emotional connection in providing, a very, aspirational, site experience. So the way that we structure our business is around these different lifestyle edits that very much align with, where AERIN is in the moment. And from that, we build out, whether it be a marketing strategy from a paid search perspective to try to connect with consumers to inspire them. So it's not only from a creative perspective, but it's also from a content and copy perspective. And I think the one thing that we are obviously struggling with is that we are selling a very luxury product and trying to continue to acquire new customers that would be inspired by the lifestyle that we're trying to convey and that live in that way, I think is becoming more challenging as, the ecospace becomes more fragmented and there's more noise out there. So, we've done a lot of work in terms of segmentation and building segments based off of our customers' baskets, understanding how customers are purchasing items together. We've rolled that out from everything from product recommendations to audiences that then we create lookalike audiences through Meta and through our marketing channels. And that's really helped us connect with customers when they have that propensity to buy. And we're continuing to try to upsell them. So for instance, if they have purchased a collection of plates, maybe they're looking for the dinner plates or the serving bowls. So doing an analysis of what they've purchased and what similar customers have purchased and what they've purchased with it, and developing content that sort of brings that entire lifestyle together. So that's been a big focus of ours. And then something else is really, I think for us, we're always looking at, profitability and first order profits. So that's been a big focus within all of our marketing efforts. So what we've actually seen is, from a prospecting perspective, we have a lot of high margin campaigns in place through Google that have been performing quite well. And from a segmentation perspective, we're looking at customers that have potentially, summer homes. They're in either the Hamptons or Nantucket and so forth, and thinking about the seasonality of our business and where they are at that moment. So we know that right now our customers are, they're looking to furnish their summer homes, and developing audiences and targeting around those geographics has proven quite effective for us.
I think it's so important, especially in the luxury space, to focus on the moments and when it's most relevant to reach that consumer based on where they are in their life, or from a seasonal perspective, reaching them at the right time. So moving into innovation, I had mentioned that we're kind of in this inflection point in the world, and it's really a fruitful time for innovation to happen. And so can you talk about a little bit how we talked about AI, but some other ways that your team approaches innovation and making sure you're staying close to what's relevant and what's new, but also staying true to your brand and your customer?
Sure. So I think it's always important to think about innovation in terms of the value it's providing to the consumer, to your consumer and the end user. But at the same time, I think it's always important to be thinking ahead and thinking about what's new and next and continuing to educate yourself and exploring new technologies. I know one thing that I do is I make sure that I allocate an hour of every week to meeting with a new technology provider, and I know that's really hard when we have busy schedules, but I think it's really helpful to talk to new technology vendors and learn what's new and next and what's out there and what's happening. And I think when it comes to innovation within an organization, it's important that you're not only thinking about the present, but you're always thinking 5 steps ahead, and you're always thinking about the future. So one way that we think about innovation is sort of the 3 horizons. So you're thinking about like your core business, your emerging business, and then you're thinking about the future. And to make it most effective, you're always working on those 3 levels at all times. So even though that third level, that third horizon may be something that's 5 years out, you may just be in like the beginning stages of education exploration. I think that's always important. So you're always dedicating some time and energy towards looking ahead, so that when the time comes, and in our case, when the luxury customer, is starting to utilize that technology, or consumer behavior has changed, you're ready to implement it at that time.
Got it. So staying true to kind of your core messaging, but also staying nimble enough to test and learn and understand what's going to refine and elevate the experience.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And I think it's important to focus on continuous innovation. So in our case, rolling out new site enhancements, on a regular basis, and always having, a new technology on the roadmap, and understanding, what will provide the most value from a customer experience perspective.
Great. So on that note, maybe on a more tactical level, what are you testing or experimenting with or excited about from a technology perspective?
So we're in the process of replatforming. So at this point in time, we're really focusing on building a foundation for the future, which will enable us to scale and grow the business. I'm particularly interested in data enrichment at this time, and I think that is something that's very important for us given the luxury audience that we are. So understanding how we can make better use of our first party data and understand the intent of some of our audience members. So maybe they just purchased a new home, and building segments around customers that have built new homes or recently purchased a new home or have purchased a yacht or, newly have come across money. Like, there's ways that we're able to define these audiences through data and data enrichment. So I'm really excited about this in terms of the future, and we're all trying to figure out how to make better use of our first party data. So this is something that's priority on our roadmap.
Yeah, I think the more sophisticated you become with your data set, the more you just learn about your target audience, your consumer, and how to best provide the right messaging at the right time.
Absolutely.
So knowing that you're in the luxury space, I imagine you stay on top of other luxury brands who are innovating. What brands are, in your opinion, innovating well, or what stands out to you in terms of what you're seeing in this space and what you're excited about?
I think it's really interesting what some brands like Gucci are doing sort of in the metaverse and experimenting. I truly wish that we had the budgets to do the same. And I think it's really important to, like I said, to continue to test and be there and be present. And I think that they've done a really great job of engaging the next generation. And I think that in the long run, even though, it's often scrutinized and it feels like, maybe they're not seeing the return, I think in the future they will. And I think it's amazing to see that, they're always top of mind, and the luxury consumer is their top demographic, which is amazing. So I think they're doing a really good job.
Awesome. So in terms of how you're approaching kind of testing even from a different channel perspective, can you kind of walk us through what your strategy is from an offline perspective, an online perspective, kind of what that looks like?
So it's interesting. So our offline audience is actually much different than our online audience. So our retail locations are based in more of, I would say, vacation destinations. So it's where our customers have their second homes. It's where they're spending their summers or they're spending their winters. So we oftentimes see that the behavior that is in store doesn't necessarily match up with our online behavior. But what we're doing is looking at our stores as a way to acquire new customers, because these are customers that may not be familiar with the brand. They may be vacationing in Florida, in Miami or Palm Beach, or they may be out in the Hamptons for the weekend, or they're visiting internationally. And so we've been working on different strategies to get them on our list, to target them with future communication. We've started to create a cross-channel loyalty program. And when we're thinking about, building this exclusive VIP, this list of people, it's not just people who have purchased on our site, but it's also consumers that have purchased in store. And so that has proven quite effective for us. So we've actually seen that the conversion of rate of that has been about 20%. So we're continuing to focus on how we can sort of nurture those customers in the store and then continue to sustain that relationship long term with them online.
Great. So I know we have a few minutes left. I figured we'd open it up to questions, but before we do that, Angela, when a new team member joins at Flowcode, we like to ask them some rapid fire questions. So I wanted to see if you'd be open to it.
Sure.
Okay, they're fun, I promise. Mountain or beach getaway?
Mountain.
Same. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
My fiance asked me to include this one, so you guys are all witnesses. Knicks or Nets?
Knicks.
Okay. It's Friday night. What's your ideal night? Staying in, grabbing dinner with friends, or a full-blown night out?
Well, what's realistic? A night out would be great, but I have 2 kids, so it's just a night home and with the family.
That's fair. Mm-hmm. Favorite cuisine or restaurant you've been to that you recently that you loved?
The Inn at Poundridge, Jean Georges.
Yes, love that. The last show you watched?
Succession.
Great show. And my personal favorite, if you had the greatest singing voice and you had to pick one song to sing to the entire world, what would that song be? It's a tough one.
That is a tough one. That's not really my type of music. I don't know if I can answer that. I like Led Zeppelin, so. There you go. That's a great answer. So that's all I had from a questions perspective. I figured we can open it up to the audience. All right. Good. Yeah. Thank you guys.